Can Christians date non-Christians? That's the first question y'all submitted as a part of our Tough Questions sermon series. And I think that's a phenomenal question. Can Christians date non-Christians? I want to reword that question, though, a little bit and ask, is it a sin for Christians to date non-Christians? So perhaps the verse that comes to mind first for you, maybe you've heard this verse before, maybe you haven't. It comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. It says, do not be unequally yoked with an unbeliever. And so the question is, what does that mean? Oftentimes this is used primarily to talk about how a man and woman shouldn't be married if they're both not believers. But really, as we look to that verse, as we look to the context of that verse, there's nothing specifically stated about marriage, actually. Now, I think that verse definitely applies to marriage. And the reason is within a marriage, there's no one that you're going to be closer to. There's no one that's going to have more of an impact on the way you think, on the way you live than your spouse. And so that verse definitely applies. And as we look to that verse, not being unequally yoked, it comes from that farm situation, right? Where two oxen are pulling at a yoke. And if they're unequally yoked, they're, instead of helping each other, which is why you would have two, they're going to be hurting each other. They're going to be fighting against each other. And so that's why Paul writes that. And so oftentimes the first place we go to is the marriage. But I think it actually goes far beyond that. I think that applies to, the dating relationship as well. I believe that applies to our friendships. Now, I'm not obviously saying that you can't have friends who are unbelievers, but who are you letting speak into your life the most? Who are you letting guide you the most, having the most influence on your life? Whether this is your business partners, whether this is your friends or your boyfriend, girlfriend, of course your spouse, whomever it may be, who is speaking into your life the most that is going to have an effect on the way that you are living, the way you are aiming for, and it's going to be different than what God has called us to do. And so there's kind of some debate on can Christians date non-Christians. I would advise against it for the sake of saying, listen, it's gonna pull you away from the Lord. It's gonna add a strain either on that relationship with your intimate other, or significant other rather, or it's gonna have a strain on your relationship with God, or even both. When a Christian is dating a non-Christian, the Christian is going to have morals and ethics that they strive for, whereas the non-Christian is going to have morals and ethics that they strive for that are differ from the Christian. And so just to be candid, there's going to be that sexual tension as well, right? If the non-Christian may not hold to a biblical standard of sexual morality. And so that just adds that temptation on our lives that is just unhelpful to have. And so I would strongly advise dating a non-Christian if you yourselves are a Christian. I don't know if the Bible explicitly calls it a sin because the Bible doesn't talk much about dating because that wasn't around in the culture. And so I hesitate to call it a sin, but I would strongly advise against it.